On this episode, I sit down with Ayren Pfeifer out of San Diego, who is the founder of the Ayren Pfeifer real estate team. With 16 years of experience, she talks about why consistency was the cornerstone of building a bi-coastal business. We also unpack her passion behind helping military families. As well, she breaks down how she was able to start her business multiple times from scratch, all while maintaining her ability to have smiling clients at the closing table. Now, if you're finding value in content like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now. And without further ado, I'm your host, Shawn Kunkler, and the team lead of the Homeward Associates Group out of San Francisco. Thanks for joining me today, Ayren. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me, Shawn. I'm very, very excited to be here.
For sure. So let's kick it off the way I always do. I'm sure if you've listened to the podcast, I'm going to ask, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Ayren Pfeifer. I am a realtor, but first I'm a mother. Then I'm a spouse and a military spouse at that. Which
I would imagine carries with it its own specific challenges.
Well, it does, of course. And, it's impossible to tell you in a few second recording what I do.
Yeah.
Those three roles that I play, really, four roles, encompass so many things.
Yeah.
To be specific, I'm a retired Marine Corps spouse of 20 years. So my husband and I met before he joined the Marine Corps, and he retired a year and a half ago. So we were together his whole career in the Marine Corps.
That's amazing. He had a phenomenal run.
He did.
When you guys are in San Francisco, I want to have a beer with him and just
please.
I'm sure there's amazing stories he has,
especially doing what he did. You know, his career was special. It was unique. Every military member has so many wonderful stories, I'm sure. But he, as an aviator, did things and saw things that were very unique. And we had a pretty exciting life. He had a more exciting life. Let me just be honest, because I was at home with the kids mostly, but he got to do some pretty exciting things.
That's amazing. And with that, I'm sure just virtue of being stationed in different places, you've had to move around quite a bit with the family.
So in 20 years of marriage, Shawn, we moved 11 times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we moved 11 times. I got very good at moving and setting up a home in a new location. It never gets more easy. In fact, it gets more difficult. And as it pertains to my real estate career, I started over 3 times. So I'm licensed in 3 different states, 2 of which I'm still currently active in. And that's because of my life in the military with my husband. I work primarily with military members. And so I run an active real estate business in South Carolina and also in San Diego.
That's amazing. And I actually would love to unpack this piece because you have a very, very unique set of skills that most people don't have. Is most realtors, we start our business once. Most of us, maybe a few do it twice, but you've done it now multiple times. So for the brand new agent who's listening right now, and they're trying to figure out, they're, let's say 6 months in, and they're really just trying to figure out how to cut their teeth and what to do, what would be the big piece of advice from your experience that you would share with them?
Well, for those agents that are new and struggling, the best advice I can give them is to change your mentality. Change your mentality to a winning and a can-do mentality. It's so cliche. I get that. But if you wake up every morning and say, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to do this, I'm going to accomplish this, even if it's a small task, do it. And then move on to the next thing. Don't overwhelm yourself by comparing yourself to other agents in your market, right? That's like the kiss of death. You never want to compare yourself. You just want to focus on what's right in front of you, and you want to start to accomplish small goals. I would say mindset is everything. Consistency is everything. Come up with a strategy for communicating with your prospective clients that's reasonable. because I've moved so many times, I've worked with a lot of different brokerages, a lot of different agents. I've seen a lot of different systems implemented. Things work, things don't work. But most importantly, know that certain things won't work for you that work for other people, right? So I would say get to know yourself and your business and figure out what works for you and just go with it. But above all, mentality is the most important thing. You have to tell yourself that it is possible and that you can do it. I am living proof that a business like real estate, which is hard for anyone, it's hard for someone who's lived in a small town their whole lives, right? Or for someone who moves and who has to set up shop every couple of years in a new location and still succeed. I'm telling you that mentality, your mindset is everything.
It is. I like to keep quotes everywhere. And I have a sticky note on my monitor right now that says top performers manage their energy, not their time.
Yeah, I like it.
So let's dig a little bit deeper. How do you actually manage it? It's easy to say, manage your energy, be focused, but what inspires you to be in that mindset or to be in that headspace?
So when I have an initial conversation with a client, whether it's a buyer or a seller, what I tell them in the beginning is that my goal is for them to get to the closing table with a smile on their face. And it sounds really basic and really simple, but it's not, because as we all know, a real estate process can be harrowing. It can be smooth, it can be wonderful and easy, but especially in recent years, real estate transactions are stressful, they're difficult. Sometimes they're not transparent from both sides. So it can be very stressful for the client. So my goal is to always make sure that the client comes to the closing table with a smile on their face. They're happy. There are no surprises. If you're a buyer, you're not surprised at that mortgage amount when you sit down with your attorney or the escrow officer, right? You know already because you have been told by your lender. I have walked you through the process. So for me, education with my clients, whether it's their first purchase or sale or their 10th, right? People think, that because they've done it before, they know the process. Well, maybe they're in a different state. TRID laws changed everything in 2008, 2009, right? So maybe they don't understand what has changed since the last time they bought or sold. So my goal is to make sure that clients understand the process from contract ratification to closing.
Yeah. Our team, we have an actual mission statement, and it's lead with relationship.
I love it.
It's the same thing. It's if they're smiling, it's because everything you've done it as a fiduciary. You actually looked out for them, their best interest. You've covered all your bases. And to your point, they're smiling when they get to that finish line. And I would actually say, the easier and yet harder is to work with the people who've already done it, because they kind of feel confident that they've done it, but they forgot a lot, but they don't have the confidence to let you know they forgot. And so it's crucially important to slow down with those folks and help them feel nurtured throughout that experience.
Or yes, absolutely. It's so important to slow down and make sure that they understand, or just tell them, even if they don't ask, right? Just, as you're going through the different points of a transaction, make sure they understand what to expect, what's coming down the pike, right? Because you're right, Shawn, they're not going to ask you, especially the experienced agents. In my experience, I work with a lot of military members, and these are not feeble, meek people, right? These are confident, qualified, motivated individuals, and oftentimes they don't like to ask questions. They don't want to appear as if they don't understand the entire thing from soup to nuts, right? But sometimes I just offer it up anyway. I give it to them just so they're like, oh, okay, all right. Oh yeah, I knew that, right? Or maybe they didn't, but I don't. For me, it doesn't matter. It's not an ego thing. It's a making sure the client understands the process thing.
With that, it's all in how it's framed and packaged. Like, I don't work with military, but I do work with CEOs, and they're the same mindset, it's the same personality. And I'll typically frame it as, I'm sure you already know this, but I just want to make sure that I'm saying it.
That's it.
And I'll blurt it out, and I'll keep it in bullet points, and then they'll get it. They save face, they know the information, and then everybody moves forward happy.
That's it.
And with you, you've moved obviously multiple times, which then presupposes that these military families that you're helping buy a home in a very short period, they're going to potentially be selling, renting, doing something else with this property aside from living in it. And if they're smiling at the closing table, then you are now first in line to get that phone call when they're thinking of that next move.
That's right. And in fact, I actually, with my military clients, I go through a process where I explain to them, all right, here's what you can expect when it comes time to sell. Even though I know I can get a second commission at that time, my goal is to help them build wealth, right? Military folks don't join the military to get rich. They have a higher calling. And so one of my philosophies, one of the pillars of how I work is to help military members build wealth through real estate. And so we talk about different scenarios. I want my military buyers to hold on to the property for as long as possible, even if they're not living in it. So we talk about those options. We talk about their fears and what to expect. So it's a holistic process, and it's not just in terms of, hey, what's going to happen from ratification to closing, but what's going to happen beyond once you're in the house, once you get orders to PCS and maybe decide you want to hold on to it. What are the things you need to know? We talk about capital gains taxes. We talk about there are certain stipulations that don't apply to military members that apply to civilians, right? So military members often do get certain breaks with things. So those are all things I like to educate people on.
And that's all it is. I mean, I think with sales, and I don't care what it is, what product it is, we're not selling in the traditional sense of in the 80s or 90s pre-internet. People can Google and search most all of this other stuff. They're now wanting to be supported, and they want to have somebody to volley off of and hear options. Just have somebody unpack it. You can go this direction. Here's the potential outcomes. We can go in this direction. Here are the potential outcomes and risks. We can go in this direction. Here are the potential outcomes and risks. And we're culturally, as realtors, 100% having to reposition ourselves as a very different entity.
Every time with each client. Absolutely. And it's actually what I love about this business is that no client is the same. Every transaction is different. Every house is different. The challenges are different every single time. When I first got out of college, I had a desk job. I worked as an executive assistant in Boston, and I loved my boss and I loved the company, but I really didn't like working with the same people day in and day out. And so when it came time for me to start getting serious about what career path I wanted to choose, I literally had this conversation with myself, like, do I want to work with the same people every day? Do I want to work? And I love working with different people. So I decided easily that real estate was a really good path for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you nailed it. I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice.
I love what I do.
I do too. And it's funny, the variety of it, I've actually never really specifically thought about it, even doing this podcast. I love the variety of, I'm sitting down with different people all the time, whether it's on the podcast or when I'm sitting with clients, going through a transaction. It's never the same. It's never the same. No 2 days are alike. No two transactions are alike.
As a new agent is terrifying because I remember back in 2009, 2010, when I was a brand new baby agent, and I was terrified that I would make mistakes because, our business is so litigious, and there's so many rules and so many laws, and states have different laws and the nation has different laws. I just remember being nervous all the time. So I learned quickly what was most important about what I do. And of course, knowing the contract, I guess that's another thing I would add if you're a new agent. Get familiar with those contracts. Be able to explain them to your clients. Talk to them not as if, they're children necessarily, but portray yourself as an expert of what you are touting, right? You are asking them to sign a contract, right? It's a big deal. It holds legal water. It's an important document that is going to change their life. It potentially will be the largest purchase they'll ever make in their life or biggest sale they'll ever have in their life. So know those contracts, be able to explain every facet of them, because you will get questions. And the last thing that you want to do is be caught, unaware. So that was one thing I really focused on as a new agent is, the way I can get my clients to get to the closing table happy is by making sure I know my way all around those contracts, every single disclosure, know all the different phases, and be able to explain them properly. Once I got to a level of expertise with those things, I felt so much more confident in my job. And, I had to sort of take a step back because I wanted to jump right in and start selling and making money and doing all kinds of fun stuff. But until I realized, hey, you know what? I need to actually become an expert with this stuff. That's when my confidence level shot up and I was able to work much more efficiently with people.
It's that whole philosophy of slow down to go fast. Is when I got into it, I had to make money. And so my brain was hardwired to go make sales. But when I realized that I don't understand these contracts, and we don't use attorneys in California, we use escrow officers, and we use contracts that are directly from the California Association or the San Francisco Association. And you got to know them. You have to know them inside and out, because when clients, I found that moment when the client was settled and calm is when they'd ask me a question about the contract and we're standing face to face. And I say, oh, it's section 19 of the contract. It'll actually cover you because, and then I'll just basically read it verbatim from memory. And they then know, your stuff. And I would say that's, as a brand new agent or a newer agent, that is critically important. The neighborhoods are easy to learn. You can go grab coffee in any of them, but know the ins and outs of that contract.
It's hard because as new agents, we're expected to know so much, right? We're expected to know contracts. We're expected to know our clients' personalities so that we can speak to them in a way that they can understand us and listen to us, right? And it's true, right? We wear a lot of hats as experienced agents, and eventually that level of confidence with all those different things, it comes in time. And it doesn't really matter for me that I've had to move, because once I was able to be confident in my work and, knowing contracts, knowing what was happening with each state that I worked in, I felt so much better. So it was just a matter of knowing what the fundamentals of real estate were and being confident so that I could explain things to my clients.
And that goes a long way. Just having the confidence in sharing and articulating. My background prior to getting into real estate is I ran martial arts schools. I pivoted from that and then was the membership director at a high-end athletic club. And so my very strong base was communicating with people and sales. And with the last position, I was speaking to very high net worth people who tend to be in the executive suite or C-suite of the company. And so that communication side, that was my savings grace when I got in. So then I just had to plug in these other pieces. And for people who are getting into real estate as a second career or moving, I think that's the important piece to also then remember is we're not starting brand new. We're starting with this experience and we have this backing, and just that's where the confidence gets built from. It's trickier, I get it, and understand if you're fresh out of college or you just graduated high school and then decided to get a real estate license. My advice for that person, get a mentor, join a team.
Absolutely. I'm
so curious about your business now. Do you have teams peppered throughout the US? Do you personally fly back and forth? Like, what is your...
I have a lot of support, both here in San Diego and also in the Low Country in South Carolina. Any interaction that happens with clients initially, I kind of am in their faces, for lack of a better term, right? I'm absolutely the point of contact. I'm answering questions. We're walking through documents, the initial documents. But in South Carolina, if I'm working with a buyer, and I'm not there, because I do go back and forth, Shawn, not a lot, but I'm there 3 or 4 times a year. If I'm working with a buyer client, a team member, an associate member in my brokerage, will assist me in opening doors. So when I speak to a prospective buyer client in South Carolina, that is what I say. The only thing I cannot do for you sometimes is open a door. I can do everything else. So technology has made what we do so much easier. I literally can do anything else. And then here in California, my interaction with clients is almost exclusively one-on-one. And then the backroom stuff, the administrative stuff, I do have support.
Yeah, and that makes it scalable. You have to have some capacity of support. Do you use a virtual assistant or a in person?
I do use a virtual assistant. I use a part-time virtual assistant, and I have a transaction coordinator who's like an assistant, both military spouses, because I believe in hiring military spouses wherever possible. And they are phenomenal. So yeah, I mean, things change in our business, right? We go from being very, very busy to not being so busy to being very, very busy again. I keep these women or these assistants in my life, and they're in and out. They're in and out based on the level of work that I need assistance with. And I'm very transparent about my business. It is real estate is peaks and valleys. It is not consistent. That is another challenge for people who maybe are new to real estate, is that we want to create a business that is consistent, where we're always working with the same amount of clients, but that's not always the case. And I think people get very discouraged in a market when things are a bit slower. But I'm here to tell you that, again, mindset is a big part of holding on and staying consistent with your interaction with people. I couldn't do what I do without support from my TC and my virtual assistant, but they aren't always there every day. I need them often, and they come in when things are very overwhelming for me.
I have both. I have people who work for me virtually, and I have people boots on the ground with me in the office. And my very, very, very first hire was a virtual assistant who helped me keep my website updated, kept my newsletter going out consistently. I started it, I was about 2 or 3 months into the business, and then it's been consistently running every month from that date, all virtue of a virtual assistant. And so I think anybody who has the financial means, that's 100% the first hire.
I applaud you 100%. Yes. Get those initial, action points established, so that when you're busy, those things are still happening. So you're stacking. You're absolutely stacking. And I'm gonna plug Compass here, because I'm gonna say that since joining Compass, I have found that their marketing materials have made that process for me 1,000 times easier. I've never had a CRM like what we have at Compass, and I find it to be the most efficient time-wise and the easiest software to manage.
100%. I think having the tools and access to tools is amazing. And then to your point, our businesses are like ping pongs. There's definitely busy seasons, there's slower seasons, there's economic shifts, things will change. And trying as best we can to do the consistent work to create consistency in our business. Within that, the marketing piece is generally any business, as soon as the money starts, let me rephrase, as soon as the money stops coming in, marketing gets cut first. And in this business, in any business, that's the worst thing to do, is keep that running at a baseline so people know who you are and what you're doing. So when they're ready to raise their hand, you can just run with it. And the virtual assistant, they're, to your point, you can scale them up in terms of time, which is also cost, or you can scale them back, but you can also just keep the base minimum running. My biggest piece of advice for anybody new to real estate or solo at this point is just manage your money first, figure that component out first, get that to normalize, because we do have these big influxes of money, and then we have these dry spouts in the beginning. And then if you can just manage your money, manage how you're spending, you'll be able to add somebody on and not panic by looking at your bank account every morning, sweating and going and approaching clients with commission breath, just praying that they write an offer on this property because you need to cover everybody's costs.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And you're actually part of a group on Facebook. You've created a group on Facebook that helps military spouses find work.
So during the pandemic, actually at the beginning of lockdown, it was interesting for me personally because it was sort of my house was a hive of activity. We were kind of, stuck. We couldn't do much, but living in Southern California, we have this incredible climate, so we could be outside. And we had the family home, and I had an opportunity to work on my business and do the things that for so many years I really hadn't been able to focus on. And one of my passion projects is helping military spouses who choose to work. So I decided to start a Facebook page as a resource for both employers and military spouses. So people that are spouses looking for jobs and employers who are looking for full-time, part-time, remote work, in-person work, whatever it may be. So essentially, we've grown now to over 3,000 members. And every day I am accepting new members, and I'm accepting job postings from all different kinds of industries. So really just through word of mouth, the page has grown to be quite a significant group. And I tell as many people as I can. I tell anyone who's ever looking for part-time assistance, virtual assistant, whatever it may be. It's a wonderful resource for a demographic of Americans who are typically overeducated and underemployed, and so eager, right? And so eager. So to me, it's a pretty easy thing to do, and that it's doing well is not a surprise because you bring employers valuable prospective employees, and you bring employees great prospective jobs. It's a winning thing.
It's interesting, and I'm glad that you said that because my initial thought when you were sharing this is these people are probably highly educated and overqualified, but are looking for something, and they're looking for the lesser commitment virtual, and it's kind of a no-brainer, to be honest. And I didn't mean to turn this into a plug or some sort of like sales pitch for it.
We didn't say the name, so let me say the name. It's called Job Forum for Military Spouses. And it is a private event, or a private group rather. You do have to answer some questions to become a member, but you do not have to be a military spouse to join. You just have to be someone who's looking for an employee. You're someone with a job posting. So either spouses or employers, please join the group. And I will say, not all jobs are remote. Some, in very military friendly cities like San Diego, or, like Hampton Roads in Virginia, Southern Virginia, there's a lot of industry, and there are a lot of military families. So some of those opportunities could be in person.
For us, I have, working on this podcast, our editor is out of Colorado, and the person who's doing all of our marketing, it just happened this way, she's also out of Colorado. And I seriously, I love virtual assistants because there's a lot more flexibility. I feel they are able to skill up when they work with other people and bring that to us. And they're like, hey, you've been doing it this way, but we can actually explore this. And I've had that happen multiple times. That's in addition to people who are highly skilled and highly educated. And so it's a cool way to tap into a different level of people with a high level of experience.
You're looking at a larger pool of prospective, people to build you up and support your business. And why wouldn't you do that, right? That's sort of one of the wonderful things about technology is now we can reach out as far as we want to.
And again, it goes back to managing time. Is at the root of it, you and I are realtors, and my passion, my joy is sitting down face to face with a client. And so if I can then take the noisy parts of my day off of my plate and hand them over to the other people. And I think here's another different way to look at it is my joy comes from sitting nose to nose with a client. I'm having an authentic conversation with them. I'm understanding what they're needing, and we're working towards a goal. That's where my joy is. I have somebody who runs the back office. Her joy 100% comes from creating like organizing everything, keeping track of where it is, having checklists and processes. That's 100% where she shines. And I can just see it. That's her joy. And so the beauty is she's enabling me to do more of what I'm good at, and I'm enabling her to do more of what she's good at. And that goes with the people, the woman who's doing the marketing for us, the person who's doing the editing. It's the same thing. And so money then just becomes an exchange where we can it enables us to put these people in the right position so we can then grow. We can grow.
And it's such a great point, Shawn, because it's really a metaphor for every facet of your life, whether it's faith, whether it's health, whether it's family. You want to surround yourselves with the people who build you up and who emulate you, people who make you a better person.
Yeah.
It's always been my philosophy. And I guess it's something that really, hit home for me as I became more experienced and more mature in my business, right? You sort of let go of the chatter that's very seemingly important when you're young, right? You really care about what other people think and you want to impress people so much. But really, when it boils down to it, you want to be around people that support you and that you can support. And when you've got that, symbiosis and you're working together well, everybody's happy. Everybody's in a good mood. And I feel that way so passionately about working with my clients. There is a baseline mentality and attitude that I expect with all of my transactions. It's respect. It's transparency. It's education. You tell me something. If I don't know, I don't know. I'm only as good as what you're going to tell me. So it's a philosophy that I implement in all facets of my life, really, because all the chatter doesn't matter.
Oh, I love that. That's my new quote of the day right there.
It's just true.
It is 100% true. And that is you just encapsulated the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. Is I wanted to hang out with really inspiring people and hear their story. And for me, selfishly, to glean something that I can bring back and implement into my business. And that's 100% what this was all about for me. And I love that spirit. I love that growth mindset. And we're all in this together. So let's share and collaborate and lift ourselves up.
We're crawling out of a really crappy time in, the history of the world. And there's a lot of negative rhetoric going back and forth on the news, in towns. We're hearing things about in San Diego, there's just a lot of negative speak. And I try to eliminate what doesn't serve me, what does not motivate me, what does not make me a better person. And I encourage other people to do it. You have a fundamental obligation to your family and to humans outside of your home to be a good, decent person. But that doesn't mean, ingesting too much news, being on your phone too much. I mean, I'm getting on my soapbox here, but all I can say is that you have to focus on what's happening in your mind, what's happening right around you. And, it has to be a reciprocal way of living your life. You treat others the way you want to be treated. And that's it, really. I mean, it's terrible to watch the news and see what's happening in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. But how is that affecting you? And are you going to let it sink in? Are you going to let it, dip you into a deep depression? You shouldn't. It's not good for you. I think that as a culture, America, we just need to just start climbing out of the depression that we've been in and start thinking a lot more positively. There's a lot of negative speak.
The reality is newspapers or news outlets, I should say, they only make money if we click on stuff. And no one clicks on anything that says like, Susie gave a bouquet of flowers to Mary. No one cares. But if it's polarizing and an emotion, it creates an emotion within us, then we'll click on it. They go viral, the newspaper, and that's how they make their money. And so the more inflammatory it can be, the bigger it's going to be. There's a quote from, I think it's like from the 90s. The newspaper quote is, if it bleeds, it leads. And so they're not really sharing news. They're trying to make money. They're a business too. And so I don't watch the news. If it's big, I'll hear about it. And like, you'll get the information.
Right. Exactly.
So what I do personally is, generally I get up in the morning, first thing in the morning, I make a coffee, and then I go into the gym. And thankfully I have one at my home. I hop on the treadmill and I usually just walk, just to kind of like warm up my brain and my body. And I'll watch something that inspires me, because I want to start my day in that right direction. It's that same quote I shared in the earlier part of this, is top performers manage their energy, not their time. And so I want to start my day positive, because when my clients come to me and their transactions going sideways, they don't want doom and gloom. They want somebody who's confident, who knows, listen, here's the game plan. Here's how we're going to get out of this. Here are your options, and here are the potential outcomes. That's who they want to be around. Like, your clients don't want somebody moping around them. Of course, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, water does seek its own level. So does mud. I get that. I just don't want to be around it either. I want to be around top performers. I want to be around inspiring people. And again, I hope, if nothing else, people just listen to this podcast because they get to hang out with these people across the nation in their own sections or sectors of the business. They're just killing it, and they're doing it in such a positive, elegant way.
And there's nothing wrong with imitation, right? It's the highest form of flattery. You know, when you see an agent doing something that you admire, hey, I mean, implement it in your own way. What harm could come of trying different things until you find the stratagem that work for you and your business. I get up every morning and I basically roll out of bed and put my sneakers on and take my dog for a walk. I have a mixed breed pit bull dog named Ginger. She's literally my shadow. She would be right here if my door was open. So Ginger and I go for a walk every morning. And then if I'm not hopping in my car to go to the gym, I'm hopping in my car to go to a yoga class. I'm a big yoga practitioner. And I really don't start my day until I've done some sort of physical activity. That is absolutely the way to start your day. You've got to clear your mind. If you can manage to sweat a little bit every day, it's really good for you, because it just gets you out of the mindset of work and what, checklists and to-dos and stress and what needs to be done. Your mind and your body both need that break. So that is absolutely paramount to success for, day-to-day goings on in your business.
100%. I'm completely on the same page. I feel working out is incredibly important. I'm going to steal this. This is from Skye Michaels. We need to be healthy, selfish. If we can just focus on ourselves, it's like when you're in a plane. What do they say? In event of an emergency, the oxygen mask is going to drop down, and then what do they say? Put it on yourself first before you help everybody else. And that's fundamentally what healthy, selfish is if you take a minute for yourself and work out, do a mental workout, whatever it is, bring yourself up a level. When you then show up with your family, your kids, your spouse, your clients, you've already nurtured yourself. You can show up, and then you can be their support, and you can be their rock when they need it.
It's so true. When I was a kid, along the same lines of the oxygen mask metaphor, my mom used to joke, and she'd say, "If I'm not happy, nobody's happy." Right? Like, she was as the heartbeat of the family, as the one who was in charge and made sure everybody's day was okay. If she didn't take care of herself, she couldn't take care of us. And that was instilled in me at a young age. And it is 100% true. And it is not selfish to spend time on yourself. It is not selfish to choose to go to the gym over, volunteering at your kid's school every day. Like, listen, you got to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anybody else.
Yeah, your mom sounds like a strong matriarch, that is for sure.
She is. She's a rock star.
In addition to working out eating healthy, they've proven many times over how motion creates emotion, and it changes your perspective on things. I've had deals blowing up sideways. There's nothing you can do but wait for the phone call or wait for somebody to respond. And having a hard workout during that time has been my savings grace. It just, when you sweat and you're just like pushing yourself in a different capacity, it does recalibrate you, because we are, to your point earlier, we're in such a litigious business that if you can't keep your head focused, you're just going to be thrown around on the rocks anytime a wave comes in.
Absolutely. And I will say that, having a healthy living or mindset, a healthy routine, not only helps you deal with stress as it comes your way, but for me personally, it helps me think through processes more clearly. In other words, I'm an agent that likes to be 10 steps ahead, right? And if I'm thinking clearly and I'm working out regularly, somehow those pieces of that puzzle fit together much better. It's like an instant good mood, right? I always say that I'm one yoga class away from a good mood, and it's 100% true. And something that powerful needs to be implemented in your life regularly. Like, it's not a drug, but it is like a drug in that it's an instant change in your mindset. Those neurons are firing a lot differently once you've had a workout.
It is a drug. I'm gonna correct you.
Yes.
I mean,
okay. Sorry.
No, I'm just razzing. But the endorphins and the dopamine, you feel so good after a workout. Like, you really genuinely, you feel different. And sometimes, to your point, you're chewing on something, or you've been trying to figure out, like, how do I get in front of this? How do I problem solve this? Sometimes just stepping back from the problem, going for a run, going for a workout, just doing something a little bit different. You come back with a renewed perspective, and it just clicks. I've had it happen numerous times where you're like, oh, wait a second. If I just do this, all this other stuff goes away.
Well, and you're also setting a great example for those around you. My husband's healthy lifestyle absolutely inspire our children, right? Inspire the people around us. And you're making healthy routines for yourself that pay you back tenfold later in life. You want to live as long as you can. You want to be as healthy as you can for as long as possible. And implementing a healthy lifestyle is all a part of that. In short, there is nothing bad about being healthy, so do it. That's my mentality. There's nothing bad about it. I have no excuse not to be healthy. None. Around the same time that I got my realtor's license, Shawn, I was also diagnosed with a chronic condition, type 1 diabetes. So I'm insulin dependent. Yeah. And, I don't really talk about it that much because it's a part of me. It is certainly, something that I deal with on a regular basis, but it's not something that brings me down. It is not something that holds me back. I use it as motivation to stay healthy and to make sure that it doesn't affect me negatively in the future.
It doesn't define you. Like, being insulin dependent, it just is what it is. And in spite of it, I'm going to be the healthiest, best version of myself I can be.
That's it.
I had similar when I was 5 years old. I had really, really, really bad asthma, in and out of the hospital. And that's really was the start of me knowing that health and fitness was really important to me. And it just, as my asthma got worse, it instilled in me more and more. So in my 20s, that was massively my catalyst to be and live just a healthier lifestyle in general.
Isn't that wonderful? Does it affect your life to this day, or do you feel like you have it under control?
I don't really think about it, to be honest.
That's great.
It's pretty much under control, but I don't not do something. I mean, as I shared, I hop on a treadmill. Like, there's days when my allergies kicking up a little bit more, and my asthma's being a little bit, it's more triggered. But I don't know. It's weird. I just go anyways. I'm like, oh, okay. It's kind of like I did martial arts for a bunch of years, and I don't know of a single time I competed without an injury. And so to me, it's similar to that. It's like, oh, I have a broken thumb or a bruise here or there, whatever it is. You just do it anyways. Like you just you just push past it. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but I don't focus on it, I guess is my point.
I think that's great. I think that's great. And I think, if people take away anything from our discussion today, I want them to take away that being a realtor is not single-sided. Being a realtor is a lifestyle, and you are giving everything you have with every transaction when you're working with people. You are trying so hard to make your clients happy, to make, the other agents, the attorneys, the escrow people. You're trying to keep everything copacetic, right? But you can't not be affected by the things that affect your daily life, your health, your fitness, your relationships, your faith, whatever it is that's important to you. These things affect you. So you have to manage them in order to be a successful realtor. And that is something I learned very early on, is that this is not a job that I walk away from, even though I don't work in an office because I don't like working in an office. This is harder than working in an office, right? Because we do real estate 24/7. We work on Sundays. I work on the East Coast, so my phone rings every morning at 5:00, every morning, right? So it's all encompassing for me. And if I didn't manage these outlying things in my life, I would never last, So I know what's important to me. I keep those things at the very top of my priority list, and everything else falls into place as a result.
I'm reminded of a great quote that you can't find the time to do things. You just have to make the time to do it. And I would say at the core of this whole conversation is you really just have to prioritize your schedule. Like you, the individual, have to be in charge of that thing and decide with conviction, this is important to me. This is going on the schedule and it's staying there. It's like with my family, we have family dinner every night. It's a non-debatable. On Sunday, my partner Cielo, her mom comes over for dinner. That's a non-debatable. And my clients know if they call me, and we have another agreement in the house too, is no cell phones at the table. And so I'm offline, and it's not a big deal. It's an hour, nothing's going to implode during that hour, and it's in the evening. So we're usually, escrow officers aren't working at that late at night, nor are the banks. So we're fine. If we're in a negotiation, then my family knows, and then I'll excuse myself from the table. But my point is you are in charge of your calendar, and we need to, as individuals, manage it. And if you're a new agent, manage the time to put it on your calendar once a week to write a fake contract to yourself and read every line of that contract and get familiar with that. Or prospecting. Obviously, that's massively important for every agent, regardless of how long you've been in here in the game, is find the time, find the day of the week that works for you, and then find the thing that you love to do and go do that. And then working out, find time and do that and just start. But it's right before we started recording, you and I chatted quickly about consistency being the core attribute that any one individual can have to succeed massively in this business. And if you consistently manage your schedule, you're ahead of the game.
Absolutely. And it's possible. Again, what I said at the beginning, I'll say it again. Have an attitude of winning, have an attitude of can do. This is possible. You can achieve your goals. Be very clear about what your goals are and know that you can achieve them. Listen, I was a young military spouse with 2 young kids with a husband who was hardly around. And I made a decision that I wanted to be a successful real estate agent. Literally, everyone thought I was crazy. everyone, including my husband. But I made my mind up that this was what I wanted to do and I was going to do it and nothing was going to get in my way. And it took a while. It took a lot of hard work. It took some difficult situations, but I persisted. And that's the key is not letting the chatter get in your way of persisting and finding ultimate success, which you will. You have to be confident in that knowledge.
I love it. I think that is the absolute perfect way to wrap this up. That's it right there. Say no more.
Awesome.
What is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
I am on Instagram. My handle is at Realtor Ayren, and my name is spelled Ayren. So you can always reach out to me through Instagram. My cell phone number is 760-566-6587. You can text me, call me anytime you want. My phone is attached at my hip. Unless, of course, I'm sleeping, and then I do put on the do not disturb because those 5 o'clock phone calls, those are rough.
Those are brutal.
I am fully available. Would love to connect with people. Would love to just have conversations. I'm a people person, and I love to be around people, and I love to meet new people. And I really thank you, Shawn. Appreciate this opportunity to get my story or a part of my story out there. I love what you're doing. I think you have a rockin' podcast, and I think it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's an agent listening who really wants to find that perfect virtual assistant, remind us the name of that forum again.
Thank you. Yes, it's a Facebook page. It's a private group. It's called Job Forum for Military Spouses. You just have to answer a few membership questions and you're in. You can post away.
Nice. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.